This is a tutorial on how to do Kumihimo, which is a Japanese braiding technique. There are many versions with differing number of cords, and the one that this is for is a basic round strand. In the description there is a link to a Google document that has a template for you to print and has instructions and references for more information. It is free and you do not need to have a Google account to be able to access it, so anyone can do so. What we first have to do is make a template of a round disc or a loom for it. This is what the template looks like. You basically just cut it out and you can put it on any piece of really anything that's fairly sturdy. You can use cardboard from Amazon boxes, really any box, cereal boxes, plastic. You can make it out of wood. And then you need to cut these slits. And I have an example. So here's mine. It doesn't have to be perfect, as one can see. And the slits, you kind of want to cut a little bit out of each so you can have a little gap. And I painted mine because I found I wanted to. And it did make it stiffer and it prevents the yarn or embroidery thread or whatever you happen to be using from catching, I found. Once you happen to make this, the next step you probably should do is to write numbers on it, and that's on the other side. And you want to label it 1 through 16 facing towards the circle, so like that. I put it underneath the slits, and that is all you have to do. The next thing you have to have is 8 bobbins. Bobbins are super simple. There is a template here. To make it, you just cut one out. They don't have to be perfect. They can be in multiple and different sizes. Here is one bobbin that I made. And in this one, you just kind of want to cut, you don't want to cut a large gap, you just want something because it's going to be holding thread. And there we go. And this one you will need 8 of. Once you have all 8 bobbins, you're going to want to cut pieces of whatever you happen to want. So it can be anything from embroidery yarn to embroidery thread to yarn. I happen to have embroidery thread. You can get it really cheap from the Dollar Tree currently, which is where I got this. And it happens to be blue. Now, for a beginner, I would recommend, as is in the instructions, to have 4 different colors. And you're going to want to cut however much length you want. Cut more than you think you'll need. And you want 2 bobbins of each color. And to wind your bobbin, you just hold it and you put it in the slit. Like that, and you wind it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Wind it, and you want to leave a little extra, and then you just pop that in so it kind of hangs like that. And I did these beforehand, and you want to have can't really see that. Let me change my light. You want to have differing colors, so yeah, you can kind of see it. So I have 2 green, 2 blue, 2 pinkish turquoise, and 2 yellow. Yeah. And then once you go from there, you are going to take each one. You want a little more than I left out, because I never leave enough out. As you can see, I have extended all of my threads, and now it's time for the next step, which is super simple. You basically just gather the ends of these threads as even as you can, to the best extent as one's ability. You want to give a little basis for the fringe, or however much fringe you might want or not want, and you tie a knot. Super simple. Once you have your knot complete, you're going to take your disc, and with the letters up, you're going to put your knot inside. And then you're going to take something heavy and attach it. I find binder clips work fantastic. I have used a bolt. Wasn't a big fan of that, but it works. Basically anything that's going to kind of weigh this down a little. It's not so it's quite actually important in the beginning, but it also keeps the knot from going up. So I find attaching it right under there. And you can get these in a multi-pack at the Dollar Tree for $1. I have more here for later, of multiple sizes and quite cheap. So once you have that, you're going to flip it over, kind of just let them all drape to the side. See, and as you can see, it's not going to come loose. It is stuck in there. You can kind of set it down, not really, but it's not going to come undone. The next step is to basically to untangle your knot. You're going to take, which as you can see is quite difficult depending on how knotted you made it, which shouldn't be too difficult, but depends on the day. And I just stick them in something to hold it while I untangle. But you want to pair the colors together. So I have the 2 yellows, I have the 2 pinkish colors, the 2 blues, and the 2 greens. And you want to kind of just unknot them the best you can so it's sitting kind of like that and flat. And then you're going to position it so number 1 is in front, and whatever color you happen to want to put, wherever, you're going to put one of these, whatever color you happen to choose. Mine just happens to be pink. You're going to put 1 in 1 and 1 in 2, like that. Next, you're going to put another set of colors. You're going to put 1 in 5 and 1 in 6. Then you're going to do the same to the next set of colors, and this one's going to be 9 and 10, and then 14, and 13. And as you can see currently, there's about 2 extra gaps between each one. So 1, 2 each extra gaps. And it should kind of look like this in this beginner setup. You can later change it up. You can do all the same color. You can do just 2 different colors. You can mix it up, but this is a really good way to visually learn it. So this is what it should look set up. Next is the braiding, which is super simple once you figure it out. In the instructions, I have, there is 2 systems that I have for you. There is either the very detailed how to take each one in each step, and then there's the numbers where you should just move the threads to each number. And they're very simple, and they eventually start to repeat. So what I do have here on the other side, if you happen to need them, is more of these binder clips to help weigh down your bobbins. I find I rarely need them. The only time I might need them is at the very, very end, when I just have the little bit and it no longer can stay hooked onto my bobbin. But that's rare, mainly because I don't have that much patience. To start braiding, what you're going to want to do is to take this thread all the way over to here. So it should be the thread that was in number 2 is now in number 8. And then you're going to take the thread that's in number 10 and you're going to move it up to 16. And so you can now see that these threads have exchanged positions. And that's basically what you'll be doing. And the best way I find is to turn it each time. So the next set is you're going to take number 14 and move it to 4. Number 16 and move it to 12. And then you're going to turn it about 90 degrees. And you're going to take 1 and move it to 7 and 9 and move it to 15. And now you can see that these threads have fixed themselves and put themselves back in the position of the light colors together. And you'll see in 1 second these colors from 13 to 3 and 5 to 11 do the exact same thing. And while they might be in different number positions, they now are officially with 2 in between again. So it's kind of reset itself. So you can either go by numbers or by colors, which is why I think working with the colors this way is the best way to do it for a beginner. And basically you just continue to do this. I have it written out in numbers if that's how it works best for you. So I went and did some stuff off camera because it takes a while to get any done, but as you can kind of see here, let me see if I can get a better angle, it starts to come together fairly decently. And it kind of looks like that. I'm not sure how to get a better image, but while mine currently looks like cereal colored, because apparently I chose cereal colors, it works quite well. It'll work quite well for drawstrings and that sort of thing, or lacing anything. If you used thin enough thread, you could probably even use it to do binding of books. Though I would recommend waxing it. Here, there we go, kind of. So it comes together, and as it gets longer, you can just pick that up and move it. You can also, and when you get to the end of your strand, I would recommend, before you tie it off, putting your binder clip right up here. I'm going to use a smaller one because it's easier to open one-handed. Right up against the loose strands. I'm not very good at it. Like in the air. Kind of like that. So they can't come unraveled when you're tying a knot in it. And that's how you finish it off. You just tie a knot as you did in the beginning. Not hard. Now, if you ever want to put this down for any reason, I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend you do what I have done here. And this is do a partial. You do what I've done here, and that is leave 3 together. Because you then know that the exact next step would be to take this strand here and move it down to here. So now you know exactly what you're doing, and you can get back in the groove of things. I don't recommend you put it down without doing that, because even when you tell yourself you'll remember, I never seem to, you're not going to. It's just best, I find, to leave it down like that. For these strands, I find don't really come out, but if you're worried about that, you can just kind of pinch it closed like that when you set it down. But I've never had any issue, as you can see, because of how sturdy the cardboard is, which seems a bit of an oxymoron. It stays in its place pretty good. And as you can see, the circle is clearly not perfect or centered. Now, this particular loom that I have the template for only really, I do believe only works for this particular braid. You can buy or make your own templates. I just couldn't figure out how to figure out the numbering system and how many slits you would need to do some of them. I have seen some increasingly impressive ones. I have seen, there was a wooden one that was huge. It had wooden, it was kind of like a stool that people would work on. On the resources page that I have on the Google Doc, which you can see here, there is this website which I used. They have a different disc, and it can be bought, and it will require many different. And then this one also has a tutorial for another video tutorial. A lot of these places will sell things. That's just the nature of the system, but they are quite useful. And so that is basically how it works. Here I have an example of something similar. I do believe this is a this is a 7-strand braid that is a more modernized version, I do believe. It's not strictly Kumihimo. It's more of a European version, but it's the same basic practice. I just couldn't find any of my 8 strands, of course. You can never find those things when you need them. But this one worked really well, and as you can see, it's pretty strong, but it also has some stretch to it. So, tassels, Pretty simple. And you can also use different yarn. You might want to start with yarn similar or just a thick yarn, depending on who you are. I like working with embroidery thread because that's what is the easiest for me to work with. I usually choose colors I'm not the biggest fan of, which is why mine currently looks like cereal. But I'm sure my grandmother will love it. So that is the tutorial. Comment if you have any questions.